Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Bad Reviews by me, Badwater Magic. As you can kind of guess if you're new here, that my name Bad Reviews for this series is based off my name Badwater Magic. I basically do is just have a new review for a different game because I have ADHD, ADD, whatever you like to call it. I am autistic or artistic as fuck and mentally fucked. So that's fine. That's why I'm here because I'm always switching up my games. I'm playing something new and always trying out something new. I can never stick to anything longer than a week to a month. Therefore, I have a lot to say, I have a lot of feedback, and I just love playing video games. So I felt like, why not start my own review and do this? So I think you guys might notice I have my lovely assistant Lux today hanging out with me. She will be in the next segment of the video, being a little bit more active in my video. Don't be warned, I just had to redo this first clip like 24 times because audio kept screwing up. That's why I have this mic. Next video, I'll be using this mic for the whole audio. So it might sound a little funky. I'm sorry in advance. I will fix it. I just had pre-recorded this my audio on my webcam. Anyway, further ado, let's jump into it. First one will be about graphics. Enjoy the video, guys, and hope to see you next time. Later. Graphics in NightREIGN is beautiful. Overall, I think this game in its entirety is great. I really like NightREIGN, but one of my favorite things about the game is definitely its graphics. I think it has that dark Renaissance feel to it. It obviously comes after the Dark Souls series and Elden Ring. Dark Souls, come on. How can I go wrong? I think it's beautiful. That medieval sort of Renaissance Gothic vibes is just gorgeous. The graphics itself is phenomenal. They're updated. It's modern. I really have no issues to it. I like the 3D. It's personally kind of my preferred gaming style when it comes to graphics and viewpoint. On top of that, the only downside I have with the graphics, which only knock it down a little bit for me, is the fact that it doesn't run smooth on my computer. I don't know what's going on with the optimization. However, I found that if I go into full screen, it doesn't bug out as much, especially if I'm streaming at the same time. And I know my setup isn't like top tier, but it's not terrible either. I have an Asus gaming laptop, and it runs other games pretty well. However, with NightREIGN, I do struggle with some crashes and some issues, especially while I'm streaming or running other programs during full mode. And I do find it very frustrating that I have to go full screen because I'm someone who loves to like shift between things and have things going and run or watch something or research something while I'm in the game. And having to be in full screen and having to minimize in the middle of the game really is frustrating to me. So optimization when it comes to the graphics, it's not the best for that specific situation, which is optimization. So therefore, if I had to rate this out of 10, I would probably have to give it an 8 because it's gorgeous, it looks amazing, and it runs smooth when in full screen on my device. However, when I am out of full screen, it's knocked down a few pegs or score points just because it's not running very well and it's buggy in a way. So I've had to do some extensive research a couple of times just to figure out how to fix my device, which was it just stresses me out. But it's minor compared to other games I've played, and overall, I think it's gorgeous. I think the Gothic theme is amazing, and the overall graphics is mwah, beautiful. Love it. Love the spells. Love the effects. Love the vibe. Okay, so enough about graphics. Let's just jump right into gameplay and combat. So, NightREIGN is a roguelike. People need to understand when they come into NightREIGN, it's not like Elden Ring or Dark Souls where it's more of an RPG. And I don't know how you call it, but it must have a name to it. It's action RPG, but it's very, very action. I mean, one slip up, you could be dead. The same combat is the exact same way from Elden Ring and the other Soul-like games brought into a roguelike. The only difference is that it's primarily focused on boss fights and it has a 3-day cycle. First day, you simply run around, go to POIs, point of interests, and defeat as many bosses as you can, get items, and level up as fast as you can. By day 2, you should be able to be powerful enough to be able to kill bosses and focus mostly on bosses on day 2. By the night of day 2 is when you fight the final boss, the night boss of that day. That's the hardest boss you have to fight, and you get some really good rewards. By day 2, you do the same thing, repeat it, and by day 3, it's just the final boss fight, which always changes depending on like who you pick for that night. Um, but you could choose the final boss, but you can't choose what bosses are in between, which makes it a little, fun and random. And so let's just talk about combat itself. Combat is the exact same way as Elden Ring. There's not much more of a difference. They have revamped some of the abilities and some of the armor and weapons, and I'm not going to go into detail about that because, again, this is just my opinion review. I won't go too in depth. This is not a video to go in depth of the specifics. However, I will say that overall the combat feels great. It's smooth. When I'm feeling for a Souls-like game where you're going to take a hit and you're dying, it's stressful. It is amazing. One thing that I really like about NightREIGN over the other games is that it's primarily focused on the boss fight. So it's a lot of fun for me. I mostly enjoy the boss fights anyway from the Elden Ring games and the NightREIGN games. So it just scratches that itch that I have for the style of the game. Because one thing I have about Elden Ring that I would love to see improvement on is the monotony and repetitiveness of a lot of the open world interactions. So, like, what I mean by that, in Elden Ring, they have caves, and every single cave is the exact same. It gets boring very quick, and it just takes a lot of time to get to point A to point B. It's not a ton of time, but it's just kind of boring running around. You have to run around a lot. Where NightREIGN, I mean, you run around a lot too, but it's much quicker, and the movement is amazing. And we'll get that into a second. But anyway, combat and the fighting itself. So combat, it's very similar. The biggest differences is that it feels a little bit more fast paced because you're constantly in. Well, it's actually way more fast paced because you're constantly in combat. You're fighting, and so you get these things called relics that are new to NightREIGN and allows you to get buffs to be able to do the combat a little bit more differently. So you'll be able to beef yourself up through the relics rather than just the gear and items alone, like in Elden Ring, which makes for a more smooth transition, in my opinion, and just a really cool system. And we'll get into relics in a minute too. Combat is very similar to Elden Ring. You just have relics that kind of change things, like successive hitting negates damage. At full HP, you negate damage. At low HP, you negate damage. There's so many different things, increasing attack power at full HP. There's so many different things that you get while in combat that can improve the gameplay of what you're trying to do. And when you get into different levels and different tiers. So they've introduced this new thing called deaths that is new to NightREIGN and allows a ranking system, which I think is a beautiful concept. I think that they really need to improve on these ideas that they've introduced to the game, and I think we'll see a lot of great things coming out of NightREIGN. However, the downside about combat and the downside about any kind of, like, when I talk about NightREIGN, I kind of have to talk about all of Soul-like games. If you're a kind of person who's going to stress out over intense combat, NightREIGN is going to be a difficult game to pick up for you. I personally love it, but I do get tired out from it very quickly because after the fifth or sixth time of me losing to the same fight at the same boss or same mob, there's this horseback guy. Every time I fight him at level 1 or 2, I get wrecked by him. I lose my shit. Unless I'm like Recluse and can hit with a spell from far away. I go crazy. I rage and I break down. So these Soul-like games can be intense when it comes to the combat. However, it's rewarding and it feels great, and I am definitely someone who is for high, fast-paced, action-based combat. I'm going to give it like an 8 out of 10 just because there are things I miss from other combat. Like I personally love like cooldowns and button smashing and reacting to certain ability pop-ups. It does seem one note when it comes to the way you fight because once you've found your build, it's very like dodge, hit, dodge, hit, dodge, hit, dodge, hit, and you get into this flow state in the game, and that's all Souls game is a flow state. You you kind of just do the same thing over and over and over again, and when you kind of realize that, the excitement is kind of gone for me. However, it's still extremely fun to fight different bosses and different mechanics because the timing changes. I feel like just talking about this has made me think that NightREIGN's not much different than those arcade games where you have to do it by the sound, those sound rhythm games. It's very similar to rhythm games, and if you really enjoy rhythm games, you're going to love NightREIGN if you get into the rhythm and realize like it's the same concept. Again, it kind of gets monotonous and boring to me, so that's why I don't really stick very long to these games, just because it's just repetitive. Um, I will say though, back to graphics, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. Like the boss fights are extremely fun. They have different abilities, they have different like mechanics. But at the end of the day, it's the exact same thing. It's just about how you time your dodging, how you time your rolls, your dodging, and you hit. It's just a difference in that. There's not much else to it. I really wish Soul-like games and Elden Ring and all that would have introduced like mechanics where you have to like sit underneath a lightning bolt and take damage for 10 seconds to be able to break them out of a chain, or you have a debuff and you have to like run over here and decurse yourself on a tree or something that's like has dew on it. They don't really have any of those mechanics in Elden Ring and Soul-like games, which is a bit of a disappointment for me, which makes combat a little less fun and engaging. But that's just me. That's just digressing. It's Soul-like. It's how it is. And that's it. All right, so I'm going to move on to gear and armor and all that kind of stuff. NightREIGN is different than Elden Ring and the Soul-like games just because it doesn't use gear in the same way. And let me explain. NightREIGN, I kind of touched upon it earlier. They introduced something called Relics. Relics overtakes what in those other games armor and amulets and other items would do. So in the other games of Elden Ring and Dark Souls, they expect you to get the armor and gear in the game as you progress to then enhance your gameplay and the game style that you got. So the amulets or talismans, I think is what they're called, are specifically designed for a certain build. So, for example, there's one talisman that increases your skill attack power. It's amazing in Elden Ring. It's one of the best talismans you can get. In NightREIGN, it's still very good, but it's not necessity, and it's a random drop. Where in Elden Ring, you're for sure going to get it if you know where to get it, and it's towards the end of the first like playthrough of the game, which kind of is lackluster for anyone who wants to build around that. So therefore, people kind of go for an Elden Ring, a different talisman before they reach the skill boost talisman, and that's usually like a successful attacks increase attack power, or maybe receive less damage somehow. But in all these games, it's kind of like paramount that damage negation, like straight up damage negation or straight up attack boosting abilities or talisman, are always going to outperform those random ones that are like boost your status element or poison resistance. Like no one really uses that. It's not that great. And like I know there are certain zones that have a lot of poison, so you would think to use it, but no one ever does. And I think it's poor game design to create kind of like useless talismans. They're not technically useless. Don't come after me in the comments. But they're not technically useless, but no one's going to use them. And to me, if you create and design certain things in a game where it ends up never being used, is that really the fault of the player or the game designers, right? Like, and I've created games and I've watched people use my items I've created, thinking like, oh, this would be a great item, and it boosts their fire resistance. They're going to want to use this during a fire dragon boss fight. When I realized no one was using that, I realized that I could either A, make it even harder for the boss, like they cannot do this boss without the fire resistance, or B, make it not a thing anymore because it's kind of a useless stat. So like I had to make that decision, right? I ended up actually going for the first option and made the boss require people to have fire resistance. Then it kind of forced people to have to like itemize for that and create a fire set for it, which I thought was pretty cool. It only really affected the tanks. Um, and they actually wanted to enchant their gear with fire resistance, so I thought that was pretty cool. However, for NightREIGN, it just feels awful to get certain talismans in the drop because in NightREIGN, you're not going to get the items you're going to want every round because it's randomized. After the third day or after you lose in the first day or second day, it resets and everything resets. So you begin with your class's basic items and armor, and that's it. You don't even get armor in NightREIGN. You just get what you started with, and it really doesn't matter. The only things you get that are different are your weapons, your talismans, and that's it. The weapons have special effects on them that are passives that you really want, and then you also get items. Sorry, you also get items. So the talismans also have effects on them. The weapons do as well, and then food have best boosts that are pretty good. With the scholar coming out with the class, it's pretty freaking great. It's even great now too. I recently learned if you eat the poison and ailment boilices, I don't know what you call them, but they're basically the things that you eat like berries to cure yourself of ailments. You get a passive resistance boost for doing that. So I was like, now I eat them every single time I see them, which is great, and it helps out a lot during like random fights I never expected to have, like a poison fight. And if I have this natural poison resistance after eating the item, it's actually pretty significant. However, um, there are relics on top of all of this. So before you go into a game, you can add your own personalized relics to a chalice, and you get to unlock chalices throughout the game. Chalices are the answer to kind of like that lack of gear, I guess. Instead of getting armor in the game, you get these things called relics. So basically, relics are predetermined passives that you get randomized from playing the game. So after you beat a game, even if you lose, you'll get a chance of relics. More, you get better relic chances for ending the game and completing it versus like losing, and you get a lesser reward for each night that you don't succeed. So let's say you die in the first day, you get the least amount of rewards and the least amount of like relic chances, and then at third day and you beat the final boss, you get the most out of it. And so each relic has a chance of dropping to 3 stats per relic. So the lowest relic you can get is 1 stat, and that's it, up to 3 stats. So there's a ton of relics with a ton of different stats, and it's a bit ridiculous. The pro, it's pretty fun to get a randomized stat that you really want and you're really excited for. The con is that it's random, and there is no way for you to curate or craft for a specific relic. God relic is what we call it in the game, that you want. So for example, a god relic for one of my classes, I'm trying to think, I'll bring up my Colossal Duchess, right? I want dormant Colossal Swords with skill power up, which I don't think is an option, but maybe like attack power up at full HP with maybe I'll say successful attack negates damage. I'm just making this up. It might not even exist in the game. I'm just making it up. That would be a god relic example. For that to happen, it has to be a random generated thing that I get from the end of the game. The only thing they have done is by allowing you to sell relics that you don't want, and then hopefully and then be able to purchase with that sold relic. You get mercs at the end of the game, and you can sell your unwanted relics for more mercs. You then use those mercs to then purchase random relics again. It's pretty much like a gotcha mechanic built in and caked into a roguelike, and I absolutely hate it with I hate this with a godsend. I don't understand why Asian developers love gotcha mechanics and RNG gotcha mechanics. I freaking hate them. This is the biggest downfall I have with NightREIGN is their relic system. The number one thing that I think would fix this is that if you get a relic with a stat that you want, you should be able to then combine other stats from other relics into one relic by having to give up those other stats on the other relic. For example, I the dormant Colossal Swords. And then when you have the dormant Colossal Swords on one relic, and then let's say on another relic I have dormant Colossal Swords, and then let's say I have successful attacks negate damage, which is another one I want, and let's just do a random lightning negation up +1. I don't want the lightning negation, and I don't want the dormant whips on top of the Colossal Sword dormant power. I just want that successful negation damage. So what I think would have been a huge answer to this problem is that it's simply you can combine by removing the other two that you don't want. It destroys that relic, but then keeps the one that says successful negation up and pulls it onto the original relic that I talked about first. I think that would answer all of my issues with the initial relic issue. The other problem with it is that when you get, I think that you have a max number of relics that you can have is 999. Let me tell you, if you play enough, it's easy to get to that number. And then you're forced to have to go through the 999 relics that you have, and then have to then decide and go through painstakingly with which relics you don't want and which ones you want to keep. And I will tell you, I get overwhelmed very quickly. Isn't that right, Lux? She agrees. She sees me all the time doing it. She's like, he gets stressed out. I am overwhelmed by it. I hate doing it. I'm not a fan, and it's a miserable experience. So therefore, I think if they could just fix it by just allowing us to tweak the relics in our own way, if we have another relic with that stat, would immediately fix all of this, and would remove the RNG element that's miserable in this game, because there's still an RNG element to even just get the item that you want with this stat it has. So once you get one, it should be just given to us in a way that we can keep it and then use it again. I think it's just so frustrating to have to sell something, because that's when I get overwhelmed, is because well, this has one stat that I want with a color that I might need. I don't know if I want to keep it. I'm not sure. It's just overwhelming to think about because there's colors in relics. Each chalice has different color combinations of either blue, red, or yellow, or green. I think there's 4. So it's just overwhelming. I really don't like the relic system. I think it has a cool concept, but it greatly needs to be improved on. Um, so I'm going to have to give that a 2 out of 10. I think the relics are a really cool concept. I think they're just extremely poor implemented in this game. And I mean, I could even argue like every time you add a different like stat to that relic, you're forced to have like multiple more of that same like requirement to even upload it. For what I mean is like, let's say you only have one, it's free. Obviously you have it. Then by if you want to put two in there, you have to have two of the same relic of the same color or same whatever to then even upload. I want to say the same color, but just two of the same relics that would be destroyed in order to put it into the second slot of another relic. If you wanted three, you would need three. So therefore, it kind of forces people to have to like require more of the same, which adds a little bit of that gamble effect to it, but at least gives us a certain reward at the end. I think that we need to have to make sure there is a forced way to get that item if you put the effort into it. When it's just based on RNG elements, I think it's a really, really terrible gameplay mechanic design, and that should never be implemented. And that is in this game, and it feels awful. However, the good thing is, relics alone aren't needed to play the game and play it well. You can still destroy things in this game without a proper relic setup, but it helps tremendously. Therefore, the Relics itself is 2 out of 10. It doesn't affect the overall game rating at the end that I will give it, but for the system itself, it's 2 out of 10, is what I'm ranking it on, not for the game itself. Okay, so we talked about combat, talked about graphics, and then we're talking about relics and gear and loot and all that. Now let's go into UI. I know we kind of like went to graphics and to those things, but I did want to kind of come back to graphics sort of element to it, and that's the UI setup of NightREIGN. I think NightREIGN's a really fun game. I think it's a lot of like entertainment. It scratches that itch. However, NightREIGN is a little bit more convoluted and difficult to navigate when it comes to its system UI elements than it is in the other games. It is a little complicated and a little nuance, and especially the category section in the relic system is awful. Like going through that and having to like shift through it, like the fact that they don't have a hamburger menu or ability to like close the relic category so I can go through it faster is mind-boggling to me. It's always open. You have to go through like 20 different prompts to get to one prompt that you want. It's too much. It's awful. When you're in a game and you're looking at prompts of like, let's say I'm an item and I would love to see the scaling stats of that item to be like, oh, does this sword use faith B scaling and strength A? I would like to know, just to know how these scalings work. It doesn't show that. It only shows it outside of a game when you're like waiting in the lobby area. You can go and then check it out individually in the training grounds. But once you're in a game, you can't check it, which is stressful because like if I'm running in the game where this game is timed and I'm on a limited amount of time, that's very, very stressful. It would be nice to be help access to as much information as I can in the game while I'm playing the game because I don't always remember everything. There's a lot of things like that, little nuances of like certain things of items that I can't see. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head right here while I'm talking about it, but a friend of mine did bring this up as well. And they had a very specific situation that they were talking about when it came to the items. Like there was an item that they had, but they couldn't tell what it did exactly. And I agreed with them. It is very frustrating, and the UI element and the UI setup, it's a little frustrating to go through. I do like hitting the start menu and going through each character and being able to see those items and seeing our stats and our passives. It's actually very effective and it works really well. However, it can get boggled up by the end of day 3, and it's kind of hard to go through each of them to see what they do. Another thing that kind of frustrates me is that, like, let's say I'm casting a buff, I have to do research outside of the game to know what that buff does. It's a little annoying. It should, like, if you are able to scroll into your like menu and hover over that spell that does a buff, it should tell you, or at least have a tooltip that says, okay, this buff does X amount of like boost to your spells, specifically fire, and then it should tell you the duration and all that stuff. But it doesn't. You have to look it online, which is annoying. On top of that, the wording in this game, and this is all of Elden Ring games, is notoriously bad. I don't want to admit how long it took me to understand the difference between magic power up versus lightning attack up. And that they're two very different things when it comes to especially faith incantation spells. I believe this is correct, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But lightning attack power up works for incantation lightning spells, like the Dragon Cult and the Dragon Commune with specific lightning abilities. Magic attack up does not work for those spells because it's technically not sorcery magic. So if you're playing like a recluse who's all magic based, with their like you have faith and magic, or sorceries, magic attack up only affects sorceries or spells that have magic in it. If it's an incantation, for example, and it uses, let's say, lightning or fire based or holy based, those are not affected by magic attack up. They're only affected by fire attack up, lightning attack up, or holy attack up. And we're not even including the incantation schools of magic or the sorcery schools of magic. There are additional buffs in the game that are specific to certain schools that even have a higher rating of increase. So let's say you do fundamental schools in incantation spells. That will increase each one that you put into your relics that stacks. It stacks, by the way, for each slot of relics that you have. And there's 6 total. 6. Sorry, Lex. I know she's hanging out with me. There are 6 that you can totally stack, and each one increases, I think, by 12% or 12.6%. Where if you do, let's say, a holy attack plus 3 does only, I think, 8% or 6%. I don't know the math exactly, but I know the schools themselves are a huge increase. And if you can get on a relic that has plus, let's say you want to do a holy build for your recluse, or what's the other one? Revenant. Let's say you have a Revenant, you want to build a whole holy magic base ability set for her. You would really want on a relic to have fundamental school plus holy attack up, and you're golden. That's all you really need. If you get like additional stuff with Revenant, like passives or abilities on it, that's just like cream on the crop, right? But if you get fundamental plus holy attack up, you are going to destroy. If you get it on each 6 relics, you're a goddess. You're going to blow everyone up. So I really love that playstyle of being able to build your like relics up and have all that up. But the information is rough, and the UI needs to be fixed. It needs to specifically explain that information because going online, it's still hard. It's still not even explained very well. Even the wikis made by like fans is not. The UI on the websites aren't done well. It is confusing. They kept true to the meaning of Dark Soul-like game playstyle, which is making this as hard and as difficult to understand. So when it comes to UI, an overall element of understanding how things work and operate in these games, it could be greatly improved on. I'm gonna have to give it another like 2 out of 10 for this. The relics and the UI, maybe I'll give it a 4 out of 10 because it works. I get, now that I know what I'm doing, I'm fine. There are certain things I would like to know that could definitely improve my game. I'll give it a 4 out of 10 for the UI. It is huge improvements that could be worked on in this game. But overall, I digress. So combat I still think is amazing. I think I give it a 8 out of 10. I think it's great. The graphics is amazing. It's beautiful. The relics could definitely be improved on. If outright just removed and changed into something else, I wouldn't even mind if it was just armor that came out. But the UI could definitely be improved in as well. I think the aesthetics is great. I'm just trying to think, is there anything else on the game that I want to talk about? Because, yes, I do. So now let's talk about the classes. The classes in NightREIGN are really cool. So unlike the other games, you start out with a class, but it doesn't really mean much because you can build into anything you kind of want based on the weapons that you get. And NightREIGN, the classes matter. What you get is what you are. So for example, there are a total of, I'll have to count them with you guys. So there's the Wilder. There is the Guardian. Let's see if I can do this on my own. So Wilder, Guardian, Iron Eye, who's the archer guy, Recluse, Revenant. Who else is there? Recluse, Revenant. Then we have the Execute. I can't say this word. Executor, blah, blah, blah. He's a samurai one, the katana guy. Executor. And then, I'm trying to think. There's 2 new ones, Scholar and Duchess, or Undertaker, and then there's the Duchess. So there's like 9 classes total. I'm pretty sure I got them all. If I forgot any of them, let me know down below because I might have forgot one. Oh, Raider. There's Raider. I love the Raider. How can I forget him? Love Raider. I think I said Guardian already, so I think we're good. There's 10 classes total. And if I forget any of them, I'm sorry. But again, not the video to get the best information possible in this game. Let me just say though, NightREIGN, you outdid yourself on the class design. I am someone who loves class identity. In any form of RPG or video game ever made, if you have clear class identity, I am there for you. I think there have been way too many games that are trying to be sandboxy or give people choices and let people discover. I feel like it's kind of a cop out for developers who aren't creative enough to kind of put it in the hands of the players to do the work for them. I think I don't want to harp on people who love that kind of gameplay style because it's there for a reason. I think it's great for you guys, and I'm happy for you. For me, I want class design and I want class identity. I love that stuff. I'm just watching Lux because she is so cute, wrapping around me, looking at stuff. She always does this. Anyway, I love all the classes. NightREIGN, I love. I literally, there's nothing wrong I can say. Each one has such a unique identity. This video would be so much longer if I had to go into each one. I just I love them. Wilder's the great sword kind of guy. He's one of the best mobility in the game. He's got ability to like latch his wired attack to people and just dash around really fast. And he has a get me out free card by not dying once between each time he rests, which is a huge boost in especially solo play, where it saves you from one death, and it's massive. He has great playstyle. It feels good. So, and then we have the Guardian, who is the standard tank and Spain class. They are not going to be the highest DPS, but they're going to be really good at taking aggro because they use a shield and it's really effective. However, there are major flaws, and I won't go into detail about this, but if I ever make a video about the classes, I will go into detail about this. There are major flaws to the Guardian because of the blocking mechanic in just soul light games. That is a major problem because it's a time-based game in NightREIGN. In other games, it's not an issue. This game, it's a huge issue because it tends to be slower, and it is much slower. Um, then there is like a recluse, standard mage. I'm not the biggest fan of the mage anymore. I used to love it when it first came out. Recluse has definitely been nerfed compared to the other classes who have all got major buffs. I feel like Recluse has kind of gotten into the foreground or background in updates. I don't think she's doing as well these days. And it kind of sucks because I loved playing her even as a faith class, but Revenant, who's a faith-based caster, is just outshining everyone right now. She's amazing. Ever since they've done the new DLC content, she now has abilities to lock into predetermined class or predetermined builds that are just broken from the gate, and she feels amazing. And then there's a Duchess who's amazing as well. She has the best dodging in the game, does a crazy amount of damage. She's really fun, very squishy but really fun. And then there's a Executor. He's a cat. He's got the katana. He's got the very katana vibes. Does tons of bleed. Huge arcane. Really cool deflecting ability. Raiders, just a bruiser, gets beat up but hits really hard. Love him as well. Huge stance breaking ability. The new classes are really cool too. Scholar really focuses on support and itemization, debuffing, and buffing your party, which is awesome. It feels really cool. If you really like a support class, Scholar is really fun. Really enjoy him. And then there is the Undertaker. If you love living that kind of like, I'm a goth, like I have goth vibe girl energy, but who's a boss and will step on your face, she's your girl. She's skinny as fuck, but she will beat the fuck out of you. Again, video game logic, kind of anime logic, right? Where it's those girls with skinny bodies who, in real life, their bones would break and shatter in 2 seconds with these kind of fight moves. But in video games and in anime and fantasy, they destroy. She also loves to eat the gunk off walls. So if you're into that, cool. Just love that she kicks ass and she goes into a trance drug light state because, anyway, there's a whole backstory on her. I love her. But yeah, if I missed anyone in my discussions, I'm sorry in advance, but I love the classes. 9 out of 10. There's only a few minor things I would probably want to fix and change. Specifically, I'm looking at you Guardians. I love Guardians. I just wish they were a bit better, and I wish there was just like a taunt mechanic that they force the thing. and I wish the guarding in NightREIGN was a better created. It's a little funky the way that you look and the way that the blocks work. If that was fixed, 10 out of 10. But it's close, and it's rare for me to be this high on my ratings for something, especially when it comes to class design and mechanics. Love NightREIGN's class design. Highly recommend this game, guys. It is so much fun. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think the other I'm gonna end this video on one last thing that I would like to request from the game, and the biggest flaw of NightREIGN and all is just content. I think there just really isn't much in the game yet. I think that they added 2 new classes, a bunch of new maps, and now they have a ranking called in the deaths is phenomenal. I think the gameplay mechanics are really smooth. I think they work really well. It's just there's not much to it. And I was watching this one video of this guy who's pretty famous within the NightREIGN community. I don't remember his name, but he's a YouTuber. Definitely recommend checking him out. He does a bunch of videos on NightREIGN. He's, I think, Yawn something. He was discussing how he wishes there was more like cosmetics that players could buy, or like have really cool like nameplates or like effects on their name in the game. And I agree with them. Like people eat that stuff up. I think there also needs to be like harder content that is more difficult for like top tier players to reach, because I think it's fair that there's gonna be content that players will never reach, that are like predominantly like 98% of the player base will never reach. But it should be difficult for those like top 1%, 1%ers or 5%ers to do and strive for. I've noticed that they've kind of hit the wall and they're already over it and they're kind of done. There needs to be more. There needs to be like higher levels. Hopefully they introduce like up to like 10 or something. But I also wish they would do like more maps or just more like variations of the maps. It's kind of stagnant now that I've played it so much. It's kind of repetitive at this point. I really like the new map they came out with, the crystals. I think that was really cool. So I would love to see more of that. I think just one of those new maps is kind of lame in the DLC. I think they needed. We even had to pay for the DLC, but I mostly just wanted it for the new classes. But I think that they should definitely have more, just more maps. Like 2 classes was great. I think that was a perfect amount, but not enough maps, not enough tier. The tier introduction is great, but still don't think it's enough. I only made it to depth 3. Depth 5 is the highest that you can go right now, or lowest, depending on who you ask. But I have been watching like better players than me get to depth 5 very easily, especially if there's 3 friends that are really good. It's super easy for them. So I think they need to introduce new mechanics that makes it harder for like 3-man teams playing together. I feel like they need to introduce like, if one friend has a curse and they don't break it within like 5 seconds, it spreads to another player and they will die. Like they need to add more stuff like that. I think if they design more mechanics like that for like 3-man teams to make it more difficult, I think it would be really cool to see. I would hate for it to become more difficult with just power level spikes, because they've already kind of mastered the dodge hit mechanics. And it would make for really poor gameplay if it was just like a one hit all the time, right? Like you have to 100% it. I don't think that's a good gameplay mechanic. I think they need to add different ways of like creating possible deaths than just being hit by the mob. Anyway, I digress. Hey, just jumping in here real quick because I realized I did not add this in the video when I recorded it. But I just wanted to say real quick that I'm going to give this game, NightREIGN, about like a 7 out of 10. I think the combat's amazing. I think there's some soul-like, issues that I have in general with all soul-like games where it's too repetitive. And I would love to see elements added into like boss fights where it's not just dodging and attack, dodge, attack, dodge, attack. I would love to see new mechanics come up, maybe more interactions with certain said mechanics. It would just be really cool to see some sort of like more support, sort of like with a scholar, but a way to remove skills by hitting each other or something like that, the way that we resurrect. Anyway, 7 out of 10 because of monotonous of soul-like games, and then overall UI elements and lack of content is another why I'm kind of edging it down from like an 8 to a 7. It's NightREIGN is just very small roguelike, which is great. It's really good for what it provides, but with the amount of money we kind of pay out for it and it not really being a major live service game, it's just literally repetitiveness. all they really need to focus on is bug fixes, but it's not major. It's not a big game. Um, I feel like there needs to be more and additional little changes to the UI to really improve the overall user experience. So 7 out of 10. I just want to put that in there. 7 out of 10 for the video, for the game, for NightREIGN. I'm done. Bye. Ah. I appreciate you guys for hanging out with me and Lux today. I know Lux was a guest on my video. She might not always be on my videos because she's not always wanting to come out. So, yeah, that was my video for today, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I really appreciate it. I think I might call you my baddies. I still think I like that term because it's bad reviews, and if you guys are watching, baddies, I might stick to that. But anyway, I'll do my little thing. If you enjoyed the video, or if you didn't, and you want to keep watching why I'm not great, and I'm not sure why you're a sadist. I don't know the right word. I'm trying to say it. I can't speak English very well because I had a speech impediment when I was a kid, and I'm mentally not there 24/7. So anyway, hit that follow button if you're on Twitch. No one was here today. It's fine. Hit that follow button and then subscribe on YouTube. I think it was called. I don't really care. But thanks again, guys. I appreciate all of you for watching my video, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time on my next one, which will mostly be WoW TBC Classic. So see you guys next time. Enjoy, have fun, stay warm out there. Lux also agrees it's freezing right now, so weather is nuts. But anyway, guys, I am out. Peace. Don't know what to do with my hands. Never know what to do. Bye, y'all. Have a good one.